All right, well, it's 7:30, so we'll call the meeting to order. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes? If so, if I can get a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign? All right, who's giving us the review of the financials today? Corey?
I'll come up and change it up on you guys a little bit.
All right.
Good morning. Attached is the RDA budget and actuals report as of August 31st, 2025. These reports present year-to-date budgeted and actual expenditures in the operating and actuals in the capital budget. Revenues, expenditures, and other financing sources are reported once they are realized. As of August 31st, 2025, expenses are $151.32 for bond contractual services, $166.35 for water service, and $7,285 for bond costs, which total costs are $7,602.67. Yearly bond payments have also been made as of April. With that, I'll take any questions.
Questions? All right, if I can get a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. All right. Any items for public comment today? Hearing none, we'll move on. Business items with public hearing or public discussion. Other business.
Go ahead. Mr. Lee's going to take this one. He brought this forward.
So we had a request from the soon-to-be Day Resource Center over in the building just off of Gibson Street, which is now Better Way, or will be Better Way. And with the RDA ownership of the parcel, with the road access through there, there is no formal legal right-of-way public access. So we're kind of looking at different options. I know we talked about this prior where we were discussing access easement that the RDA would record, and it would allow for public access through the roadway. Then after some discussion with legal staff, we said, well, let's just clean it up. We'll transfer it back to the city, and then we don't have to worry about public access anymore. So that's what this motion would do. It would give the motion for the RDA to transfer the property back to the city. This is, a few of these parcels are left over from TID 7. With TID 7 being complete and closed, we can start to get these parcels transferred back to the city. With that, I can take any questions that you may have.
Is there a reason we're not doing the other two?
So that's a very good question. I did want to do them all at once. However, the legal descriptions on all the parcels are an absolute disaster. So honestly, before we even claim it back to the city, I actually might end up doing the access agreement just because of speed of time with the Data Resource Center and their concerns of the public access. But yeah, the legal descriptions are a mess. The legal description for the parcel shown in teal actually goes across the Eau Claire River and then back. So it's really all over the place.
Any other questions? Seems pretty straightforward.
I did draft a copy of,
Yep.
of a potential motion for anyone who wants to explain that.
Okay.
There be a copy.
So if I could get a motion to approve the proposed transfer of parcel 02-0238 at 203 Doty Street to the city of Eau Claire through a quitclaim deed to assure public access through Gibson Street.
I would make that motion exactly as you worded it.
All right. And if I could get a second, please.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item.
So we are doing some cleanup in the Kessler Park area. So the approval was to do the swap where the new Kessler Cannery Park location is. They exchanged land with the old Kessler Park location. They are getting ready to complete and record the final transfer of that. But there's still some structure on the space, so we want to have just a quick discussion with the board on what to do with that. We did talk with the Parks Department. They are pulling the playground equipment down. They will utilize that at another park, so they'll dismantle it, take it to one of the other existing parks in the community and use it for one of the other areas. But it does leave the basketball court and the restroom area. It's a all-season restroom area that is typically not used. It's typically locked. Talking with park staff previously, it became a safety and health concern. They were having unhoused folks sleeping in it, and they found there was an excessive amount of drug use in that. So they actually haven't been opening it up to the public, but on very specific defined occasions for a number of years. The options for the board once this transfer is final is we could simply leave it and leave it for development. Any developer to come in, it would be part of their clearing of the site and demo, et cetera. Or we could go ahead and clear the site. There are some funds available, some unexpended funds. Finance Director Winters told me there's about $150,000, some unexpended funds within the RDA budget that could be used to go ahead and do the demo and clearing of this site. Traditionally, the RDA has made them as shovel-ready as possible, so they've cleared out any existing structure and left them as true greenfield site for development. But want to get the board's input on that. If you want to go ahead and see about removing any existing structure and truly trying to make it as shovel-ready as possible, we can go out and get quotes for demolition and removal and then bring that back to the board for approval. Or if your direction is to leave it as is, we will leave it as is and let any potential buyer take care of that themselves on a redevelopment proposal.
So my question in that is, you mentioned that it's only been open for specific occasions and so forth. If it's transferred over to the RDA, are there issues with continuing to make that available for those types of uses or anything? Or is it really not seen that we would ever open it back up?
We would never open it back up. The new park has full restroom facilities. It has all of those amenities there. It does become a liability. Should a pipe burst or something occur, it would be the RDA's to take care of at that point in time. So it does have it should be minimal, but you never know what could happen with a structure that has utilities running to it. There may end up being some things that have to be addressed by the RDA that currently don't have to be. So that's the thought of that. You carry a little bit of liability when you keep a building sitting empty in a park area that is a little isolated.
Aaron, how quickly could the building come down?
It could come down fairly quick. It's a small structure. We'd simply put it out for bid, solicit RFPs, and bring the bids forward for the RDA to choose who would be the contractor. It shouldn't be terribly expensive either. No bigger than that structure is. We've done house raisings through the raise orders that are $10,000 to $15,000 full cost, and you're probably talking about a similar size structure. So I'm guessing that might be a ballpark figure of what it would cost to take that down.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions. One is so I understand due to a lot of different factors, right? Sometimes these projects, we don't have to work very hard at all to get the bids, and the developer is really eager and excited to develop the project. Do you have a sense of where we are in that type of cycle? Do we expect that this would be a project we'll have to really sell, or will there be a really big appetite for development here?
We're doing a push for it. We have had 3 different builders, 3 different developers express interest in it that are traditional ready-to-go builders. None of them have submitted a proposal at all. 2 of them typically do LIHTC projects, and their timeline for submitting a LIHTC for this year, they should be submitting those now. So I'm guessing it's not on their radar for this coming year. The third one is a local developer who's developed a lot of parcels. They expressed interest in it, but again, they haven't submitted anything, haven't brought any concepts to us. So I don't know how serious they are. We'll continue. We've been putting some reminders out for it. Just small brochure type pamphlets, e-marketed out to a full developer list. We have about 50 or 60 developers on a list that have expressed and do some level of interest in the city of Eau Claire. Some are local, regional, out of state. Anytime we do a new benchmark, we refresh that out to the group. So if we did the demo work, we would kick that back out, reference that site's been cleared, everything is ready to go, and it's shovel ready site, because they are doing utility extensions. They're doing work on First Street. They're on the east side of the park, part of the street work. So talking with engineering, I said, let's set the site up for the maximum potential. So they put a 4-inch water line stub on the southern end of the property, and then there are, I believe, 3 existing, they might 1 or 2-inch lines typical for like single family or twins. So it has capacity to serve a multifamily project as well as any type of single units. So it's as shovel ready for as much density as what's suitable for that space as it can be. And then, like I said, we would refresh and keep pushing that, advertising that out. We're with the recent downticks in interest rates, we're getting a few folks stirring that have been holding off. We had a lot of developers said 5.5% interest was the magic number for them to make projects move forward. We're actually creeping a little closer to that, so we might see some projects kick off that have been waiting in the wings for a while. But we have no hard leads. I still communicate with Mary Catherine Pudlow. They do have an interest in this site. They have not reached their fundraising benchmark that we've specified they need to hit to even bring it forward as an official proposal for the site. But they still have their interest in the site as well.
Yeah, just the reason I ask, if there's a huge interest and we don't expect this to take very long, I guess I'd be interested maybe just leaving the facilities there if we know that there's a lot of interest, and let the developer handle the demolition. But I don't know, I'm not opposed to moving forward with making it more shovel ready too, if that would be something that would help us make the project happen there. The only other thought I wanted to say, I don't know exactly, I'd want to talk with maybe other city staff, is if there's any value in retaining that structure, like the season we're about to head through, winter months, if we have to have like emergency warming locations or something. This is a facility that is a structurally sound and safe, building, has utilities, so that would be my only other thought about the value of retaining it in the short term.
It is just restrooms, so it
Sure.
wouldn't
Yep.
really serve for that
Okay.
function, I guess, based on space. I don't think there's any, I actually have not been in it because they've kept it locked up. My understanding is there's simply restrooms and
Okay.
no other, it's not any type of a shelter meeting space like an all-season shelter house would be for picnics or events or anything. It was strictly the bathrooms facility, so it's probably not an ideal use for that. And I'm not sure how much they heat or maintain that space. I'm guessing they maintain it just enough to keep the pipes from freezing, and that would be about it.
Aaron, do you think having the structures there is a deterrent to developers?
Sometimes it can be. If developers looking for multiple sites, they're obviously going to look for the one that's the easiest one to develop.
Yeah.
And if they find a clear site that they have no demo work to do at all, versus one that, well, they have to tear down, even if it's a minimal structure, have to tear it down, that may be enough to swing them to one location versus another. Full shovel ready is always the preference if you can get there and if it can be done reasonably. And the cost could be recouped back through the land. We haven't set a price on that site either, so we can make sure that we're capturing what demo costs would be tied to it. I don't know if it would accelerate the timeline much. That's a good question. We're getting late enough in the season. It might not be one that anybody really picks up and starts talking about until 2026. A lot of developers who are, if they're working on projects now and looking to line up for spring start work, they're already designing today to be ready for that spring start. So I'm guessing this would be a little further out for whoever does end up picking it up. Obviously, as a LIHTC project with the two that we're interested in and typically do that, their window would be pushed back a year because of timing, because the credits and the applications are due in December, and they typically start pre-submitting applications and project sites in August. So having not done any preliminary that we've seen, if they were to try and move these forward as a LIHTC, they're probably a year away from moving forward at all on that. And if they are looking for, as competitive tax credit LIHTC projects, their offers might be contingent on getting an award, which could put us a year and a half out before you'd even know if it was a final contract. We have seen some proposals come forward and put that in. They want a contingency that they're not buying the land if they don't get their tax credit award. And those are done in the spring of each year around April timeframe. So if they applied this December, they wouldn't know until April whether they can get their tax credits. If they miss this window, they'd be applying next December, and they wouldn't know until spring of 2027 where they get the tax credits. So LIHTC projects have their own issues to deal with as well from a timeline standpoint.
Is there any environmental issues there?
Nothing that we are aware of. We'll probably go ahead and do, and we have the capacity through our EPA grant to do a phase one, so we can do the research on that and make sure there isn't, but there's nothing that we're aware of.
If TID funds were used, would those be anticipated to be charged back to the RDA for the raising? Because if it wasn't, if that was a TID approved cost, then there really isn't any downside, and I would say probably get rid of the basketball court too, so everything is ready to go. And then the second question, with the engineering, with the 4-inch in the one corner, if that were to be split into two parcels, you'd need another 4-inch. So I don't know if it's possible to get another 4-inch water main or water service on the opposite corner. So if it's split north-south into two or east-west into two, you could have two multifamilies on there if that's the way it goes, and you can always neck that down if it's a single family.
Yeah, our initial concept and some things we talked about was more multifamily on the southern end, transitioning into, say, twins on the northern end, which makes for a good buffer because you're looking at single-family homes directly across the street. So that's why we thought a 4-inch line on the southern end would make good sense. And if somebody decided to do just a single unit, you know, a single collection on a single parcel, because at this point in time, we're not looking to split it. We're looking to sell it as an intact parcel to a developer. They could stretch and run their lines through privately off that 4-inch main as how they see fit through in there. But if it needed to do something differently, I don't know, we'd have to talk with engineering. There could be an opportunity to maybe come off of 2nd Street because I don't think it's under a moratorium on. We try to incorporate, because the city standard is when they redo a city street, there's a 5-year moratorium on going into the street again. Just not wanting to tear up fresh pavement or fresh work. So we try and accommodate what we think will go in there during that time frame. We think we should have a good opportunity, a good plan to do that. But if we needed to make some other adjustment, we'd work through with engineering and a developer to see how we would do that.
I'm not opposed to removing the structures. I mean, if you want to bring it back to us, what the cost would be. Does
Okay.
everybody agree with that, or? Go ahead.
We will solicit an RFP on demo and plan to bring that back to the board.
I feel like if it's, you know, built ready to go, that you're going to probably have a little more interest in the property. So to the north of there, Aaron, there's a new development that went on. Is that the density that you're looking for or different?
We showed this as the initial master plan showed this area as like potential for row homes. Van de Waal laid it out as row homes on all 4 sides of the kind of common court area. About 40 units to 50 units they felt was probably on the top end as a transitional density, going from higher density we have like on the PNR property site and south into what are single family homes or twin homes going to the north. The homes directly, the block directly north of this one is all single family, and then the block past that was Grips development that has twin homes. So it's consistent with what is in that area. And there's a lot of ways you can transition this site moving into a project for a developer. So, and then they could buy the whole site, build part of it, and then spin it out for subdevelopment within the lot. For others, it's 1.8 acres, so you're kind of limited on what you can do. It's not a huge site, but it certainly could encompass some lower density, and the zoning would accommodate doing some medium type density dwellings within that area, and the comp plan would as well.
Is the ball field backstop still there?
That's a good question. We would look to remove that. I'm not sure if that's something Parks would have removed to try and reuse or not, but we can check. And that, if it's there, we would include that as part of the demolition bid to clear everything out. I know they were going to try and recycle as much as they could to use it for other spaces. So that was their plan to do it as whatever was usable, they'd try and take and use in other locations.
This sounds good.
Any other questions?
I would add the park, even though it hasn't had the official ribbon cutting, there's still a few things in the restrooms I believe they're waiting for material on. That park's getting a lot of use as in.
Looks great.
Yeah, we've heard really good responses for it. Probably the only thing I think the most common complaint I've heard is they wish the trees would grow a little quicker, because right now there's not a ton of shade in that area, but it's coming. It will be there, and we're hearing really good feedback from the park that's going on. I know Parks Department will be doing a formal ribbon cutting dedication here yet this summer. So maybe early fall. I guess we're about out of summer, but they will be doing something formal down there to celebrate that. So we'll let the board know when that comes as well, because RDA would absolutely be welcome to attend. They were part of the process to see that happen. So.
Do you know what the occupancy is in the P&R first building that's done?
I haven't seen an occupancy rate yet. Overall, we have been hearing that they're slowing down a little bit, filling apartments. Two factors doing that. First, we brought a lot of units on. We're increasing the vacancy rate, which, as much as the property owners hate to hear it, we need to see the vacancy rate increase to get to a healthier balance for the community. We're starting to see deals show up where they're offering first month free, they're waiving deposits, providing some incentives to come in. We're seeing some adjustments to rents on a number of even the new structures coming forward. Bigger impact was UWC's policy to require sophomores to live on campus. This is the first year of that being implemented, and there's a lot of property owners we've gotten calls from saying, trying to figure out what to do now because the students that they would have expected to rent to are not there. So it's going to be a little bit of a paradigm shift for some of the rental areas and rental locations. As far as rates go, I know they're probably maybe in the 50% range. They've been open since May. I know they had talking to some of their folks, they had occupancy since the end of May, so it's just been a couple, 3 months. They're advertising heavily. I know there's a lot of folks living in there. Haven't got a formal, I'll see if I can get some more formal numbers on that. But they're aggressively marketing and looking to fill space.
They look nice.
They do. We've
Yeah.
heard some very good feedback about the facilities, so.
Yeah. Item on the agenda.
All right, I can switch over.
Oh.
Okay, just wanted to give a kind of a refresh and a quick update again on the boundary districts that we have been talking about. The first we're going to talk about the housing overlay district. This is the district as we presented the last time, and with feedback from the board, we have incorporated this area that includes Shawtown. That would be added to that district, and that would become the single. We've been calling it the affordable housing district, but it's more the selective redevelopment district. Looking at the numbers, we were looking for age of units that are in that site. There's a fair number of units under 70, built prior to 1970, so they're hire candidates for needing work or moving forward. We cut out areas that we know they're new development. We try not to include those areas, and it's not needed. The demographics on that site, as we look at this, let me go back real quick. This is the other change that we did, the Uptown District that we've been, temporary name at least, may become permanent, we'll let the board decide. Wanted to expand beyond the area we were looking at west of Hendricks Drive and Highway 37. So we added in the northern area up to the river. That includes where Marshfield Hospital is. There are some older commercial, underutilized commercial spaces up in there. We also captured the area that is Sacred Heart. And then we dropped south and captured TID 16, which includes the Shopko Plaza and all of those spaces in there. So this would be that southwest quadrant, the Uptown District, as identified, and would be more of a traditional type of RDA redevelopment project. So just looking at some of the comparison notes on that, these are the populations of those different districts, list growth rates, number of households, average sizes, median age, and just basic demographics on those spaces. Look at the properties, it lists number of housing units, median home values, and some other basic information about those sites. And then some basic safety and crime statistics in those areas. The Shawtown area is obviously not as dramatic as what the primary core is in terms of some of the indicators of issues. There are probably a smaller number of parcels that would be likely candidates for some of the redevelopment that we'd be talking about doing with the Shawtown District. One that comes to mind, I think is the prime example, is there was a small house that was intended to be an entryway for the Mount Washington redevelopment. The owner bought that as was going to be part of the Mount Washington redevelopment. He ended up not doing the Washington redevelopment, selling that space off, and kept the house, lives out of state. Tree fell on the roof. There's a giant hole in it. We ended up raising it 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, I believe. It was placarded for safety concerns. So it's now a raised site, and the owner is sitting on it, going into year 4 of unpaid property taxes. That's the type of infill project that could be an ideal target for what we've been talking about of surgical type of infill development. Going back to the broader map, at this point in time, we're ready to start talking about programming within these areas. We're still thinking for this, what we've deemed kind of the affordable district with that Shawtown extension, we still see 2 basic paths. One is some traditional commercial redevelopment, blight removal that RDA has done in all of its other districts. There are some parcels in the area that we think are probably prime candidates for potentially the RDA to facilitate redevelopment into other commercial properties done the way we have in the past. Not looking at big swaths of properties, looking at, again, selectively this space here, more of a small compact type of redevelopment. And then the housing angle that we've looked at, again, is thinking infill development, either done through the RDA in one of several ways, partnership with the Housing Authority for adding to their public housing rental stock. And I will forward through, this is a housing model that we are looking at for the Housing Authority. These are designed to be ADUs, accessory dwelling units. The way our code is written, though, is that if the ADU is detached, it does not have to be defined as less size than the primary structure. So within our new code, you could place 2 of these on a lot, one on the front, designated primary, one in the back of the lot, designated as the ADU. Shared driveway, they're 560 square feet, and this product meets 65% or so of the waiting list for the Housing Authority's waiting list for housing. They need a single unit dwelling, either studio apartment or a 1-bedroom apartment, and this would meet the needs for 65% of the people on the list. We're looking at some opportunities to pilot those. We, again, talking with the Housing Authority, and envision an RDA partnership with them where they would manage and handle the day-to-day, the operations, the screening, the finding the tenants, that type of project. This is things that we've talked about in the past. And then they would handle the maintenance with their maintenance staff, and the RDA would simply cover some of those costs, would cover those costs out of the rents that would be captured and pay an administrative fee for them to do that. Envisioning that at some point in time, there would be a trigger where these would just be signed over to the Housing Authority, and the RDA would not need to own these long-term. These would be simply acquired and to get them set and to get them moving through the initial process. Looking at direct infill redevelopment, that same site, that same little small lot that I referenced by Mount Washington, it was a 2-bed, 1-bath structure. So these would be a direct replacement for what was removed through the raise order and can be placed very low cost. We are working with folks who would be able to bid these out as a project can be placed in, sold. Again, we could utilize the Housing Authority to do income qualifications to define who we want to sell them to. We could target folks making certain levels of income or less, 80%, 60% CMI. We can copy some of the HUD programs that are out there. Housing Authority help do that. The home could be placed on the market, sold, and then the revenue could turn right around and do another project. Infill could also mean getting it in the hands of a regional partner to, if the house does have some capacity to be rebuilt, there are partners out there, folks that we could move that property into their hands to do renovations. If it's more suited for a market rate project, because not every site needs to be something like this product, we can, again, move that in the hands of somebody with the RDA defining what's to be built, to some extent, what's to be built back in that space. So that's still the concept of how we would see housing come into play with this broader district. The other piece then would be just doing some of the traditional commercial replacement that we've done before, particularly vacant buildings, blighted structures that have left to develop. RDA can acquire those, clear the blight, and then spin those out for redevelopment by a developer who'd bring back a project that meets community's desire or needs. Could be commercial, could be residential, could be mixed use. We'd let the market determine that and see what fits for that area. On the Uptown District, this would be our traditional RDA long-term redevelopment strategy, acquiring blocks of properties, clearing them out, and then selling them out as a redevelopment plan, particularly along the riverside. There's been conversations with that owner in years past, what they won't be mining and running the business they're running there forever. That area is I-2 industrial. It's a holdover from a much heavier industrial past that is not there currently. It is identified as medium to high density housing in the comp plan, and that's anticipated to remain that in the new comp plan. So the target would be to, again, remove the larger blighted structures and bring back commercial development following the same plans that we have done with the RDA on numerous other districts. So these, again, are the base concepts. If this is still the direction the board wants to go, we will start formalizing and drafting up the documentation that would be presented to council. We could present it to the board in October, make any adjustments from the board at that point in time, and if it wasn't confirmed in October, we could reconvene and confirm in November, and then can bring it before council for review and approval in December. So looking for some direction. Again, I know it's pretty high level at this point in time, but if this is the general direction the board still supports, the ideas that we're looking at, the concepts that we're looking to implement, we can start formalizing that and bring something back for the board to take a look at as a very formalized plan. So
I have a couple of questions. Obviously, the locations, I think you did a great job of putting in what we previously talked about and making sure it's there. One of the questions I have is I think the definition of affordable housing is going to become very important. Is what is affordable housing and what does that look like and what is the cost? But then two, I am still a little bit hung up on why the RDA might want to approach being the landlord. And I think I felt when we left the last meeting there was a general concern about us being the landlord. So I'd like to see a little bit more scope around. Does that mean we're going to incentivize the land purchase? We're going to, put some incentives. We're going to buy the land, or we proposing that the RDA owns land, we put these housing units on it, and then the city operates them. I'm a little concerned with the RDA being a landlord at all. That's my personal opinion.
Sure. So the concept, and again, it's where it's appropriate for the sites. The idea would be there'd be an MOU or contractual agreement drawn up between, say, Housing Authority and the RDA, to where the RDA would acquire and purchase and set the lots. The reason we thought to run it through the RDA is the Housing Authority can also borrow the way we do, but it would be challenging for them to try and borrow and repay a note from borrowed funds and still provide the subsidized rents, because a lot of these we're looking to probably have to do without government support. A lot of the voucher programs, a lot of the subsidies that that HUD provides are getting cut drastically. So communities are having to figure out, if you still want to be able to deliver housing at 50% CMI rent rates, you have to figure out how to do it on your own. And it is extremely hard to do that on your own. This model would allow them to get a model set, get tenants in there, and again, the contract would stipulate them performing everything. They would manage all aspects of the operation and treat it as if it was one of the 300 units already under their belt for public housing. The agreement would be, we would collect the rents would be collected by them on behalf of the RDA. The RDA would pay out a fee to cover their administrative cost. So a management fee would be brokered in that contract, and then any maintenance costs that were needed would factor out of those monthly rent collections. Those would be pooled together and held in reserve. They can be used to do other investments, other projects. And again, I think it could be defined a certain amount of time in which the RDA owns it and then turns it over to the Housing Authority, and we define how that turnover occurs. So it would not be intended to be long-term. We have owned and been landlords on other properties for, in the case, it was not a lot, and it was generally as they prepared for demolition. The one that comes to mind is in the Cannery District. Those properties in and around where PNR Properties is at, and where I believe there was some where the Current was at. We owned and managed those for a couple, 3 years until we eventually were in position to relocate the tenants that were left, get those demoed. It was not an ideal way to do it on those structures because those were structures that had serious issues, but there is some history of doing it at least for an interim period of time.
I believe, if I remember correctly, the city staff member that was in charge of being the landlord went prematurely gray with those properties. But
I was just going to ask, how did that go?
That may or may not have.
It was very challenging. She did it, but we did stuff with the roof. I think there was HVAC issues. They were run-down properties to start with. They were necessary for the development. She took it on. She did a great job, but it was very challenging and very time-consuming, and not very rewarding.
Yeah. Whereas this would be brand new structures, so the maintenance and cost issues should not be an issue other than basic maintenance. And the agreement would be that the Housing Authority would actually fill all of that role on our behalf. The city staff would not be doing any of that type of work. That would be handled by the Housing Authority, who has staff, has maintenance staff, and know how to do all of that work. They'll do the income screening, set the parameters, and they would operate it as if it was they have 300 public housing units under their belt right now, and they would operate it as if it was one of their own and use the same processes.
So the RDA is really a landlord just by name?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, we don't want to have to do what our former employee had to do, and that premature gray may or may not have been due to a certain Mr. Solberg's nickname for that employee serving as the landlord role. It was in great fun, but yeah, it was a challenging piece, and the idea at that point in time was to, instead of relocating a large number of folks and paying the relocation costs, which are required in a redevelopment, to allow some natural attrition occur. They moved on themselves, and we didn't backfill the spaces, and we did that until it came down to a number that was a reasonable number to pay the relocation costs and then see the demo work completed.
Yes, thank you. How much in the redevelopment district plans do the tactics of redevelopment redevelopment need to be spelled out? As in, some of these questions, maybe are going to be project specific versus, saying this is how we're going to do it and this is what we're going to be limited to. So is there flexibility in how that's developed?
There definitely is. We would need to have a more formalized framework of agreement that would bring, say, if we were looking to do the rental piece, how the housing authority is going to do that, and that'd have to go through their board for approval as well. So some of those details would have to be worked out, would want to be worked out as part of that. They wouldn't necessarily have to be all complete, but we'd have to have at least a solid framework of how to move that forward, and then details can be worked out at a later time, but it needs to set kind of the basic ideas of what we're looking to accomplish within the districts. Looking at past plans, they have varied greatly in nature. The West Side River plan, which would have been the Cannery District, the initial plan was, there was a consultant and 200 pages of documentation on that original district, which it wasn't even the final Cannery District plan. But you look at the ones for the North Barstow, they're 10 pages. So the amount of detail and presentation in there was very different. We wouldn't go to the extent of master planning all this on the front end to create the districts. That may be something that's implemented the way we did the Cannery District at a later date when the district is set. I could see that happening in this district here, planning for broader swaths of redevelopment down the road. But we just need to lay out the framework. The biggest piece is clearly defining boundaries and clearly defining roles within those districts and the types of development we're looking to bring forward within those districts.
Especially with the affordable housing district, I'd really like to see benchmarks of what we're trying to achieve, as in, how do we know we're done? If we achieve an affordability rate within this district of 50% or whatever we want to set, but I think we also need to know, like with the North Barstow district, it was easy to say, okay, we're done. There's nothing left to do, or
Yep.
just about. But like with these, want to make sure we know what we're getting into, how long we're going to be doing it, and how do we know we've been successful?
And some of that, I think, that's going to be questions for the board to provide some guidance on. This district, I could see standing up for a very long period of time to be able to address issues as they come up, to assist within these areas. When we look at some of the metrics we're trying to weigh to gauge what areas we could potentially be operating on to remove blighted structures, there have been 40 requests for raises on structures submitted to the city, and almost all of them are within that blue area. Looking at indicators of vacant properties, bulk of those are located in that blue area. When you look at the housing survey that the health department does, Nicole Kragness's group does, in terms of evaluating housing and condition of housing, bulk of them are in that blue area. So it's a district that could stand and exist as needed as it moves down the road. It may be that we want to issue, we want to do a certain percentage of redevelopment, front loaded in the first 5 or 6 years, but then it's a district that can work as needed based on what happens moving forward. That could be a way to address it. And again, that would be the board's decision as a recommendation to council, and then council's decision as well. But that'd be part of what we could look at. I welcome any thoughts on that. You're welcome to send those our way, and we can see how to incorporate those into the presentation for October.
Can we have overlapping districts?
It does overlap a couple.
Oh yeah, I suppose.
It'll overlap Cannery District and Barstow and those. So, and this also captures some of the areas that we thought might be a good small district. This will capture most of those areas that we had talked about previously as potential for future districts.
Thank you.
I think the other question I have, and it'd be interesting as you go down this road, is what would the financial impacts be to the RDA, right? Even if we're a landlord temporarily or short term, what does that look like from a financial pro forma of how much money are we gonna, have to be held, obviously, because maybe this is a profitable venture, but I'm not sensing profitable ventures as we go to do affordable housing. So I think that would be interesting to know, what are we gonna tie up if in fact we gift the land, become the landlord, and put these buildings on the site? Because I'm assuming more than the landlord, we're buying the buildings as well. So it's the buildings, it's the land, it's all of that, and then the housing authority would take over. Then the other thing I think we just have to prepare for is if we're going to get into the quasi land venture landlord business, are we willing to do it for other developers? Are we willing to have this conversation with other people where we would hold the land for a while, we'd let them put affordable housing on this? Is this only because it's two city entities? I just think we have some things to think through there, depending on what, once you start this, you're gonna have other people knocking on the door, I think, to find out more about how to do this.
That's true, and that was the reason the housing authority was looked at as a target. The only thing they can do is affordable housing. We're talking low-income type housing. That is in their mandate, and they are a quasi-governmental entity, which council has representation sitting on their board of directors as well. I think it's an easy case to say this is appropriate partnership with them because this is all they do, and we have no concerns that somebody will 5 years down the road turn it into a full market rate structure. We don't have to worry about trying to create a deed restriction or a community land trust to guarantee values and hope that everybody stays to it or the trust doesn't collapse or whatever. That is all they can do, and that's all they do is this type of housing. So looking to deliver an affordability aspect, they are the logical direction to go.
Yeah, well, just maybe feedback. So I think for the affordable housing district, I think I've said this before, I see that it would be a new, if RDA moves forward with this and council supports it, this would be sort of a new function of RDA and doing a different type of project than has traditionally been done. So I think it's really smart to make sure we spell out all of those areas of like scope and what our benchmarks are, what are our objectives. I think that's really smart. And I also wanted to make sure I understand, think about this kind of new realm that RDA might be operating in. So I know we talk, having a lot of conversations about what that partnership with Housing Authority could look like, but we would still be able to, purchase and raise, blighted properties to sell to other developers for the purpose of affordable housing. Is that correct, right? We're not explicitly talking about a partnership with Housing Authority.
Correct. We would look at every parcel that's coming forward would be up to the board of direction to determine direction of what's the appropriate way to see this redeveloped.
Okay. And so that's helpful. And then the other piece of then with Housing Authority, if we did partner with them, I'm curious to know, do we have examples of other communities where RDA and Housing Authority has partnered like this? Or would it be something new that we're trying?
This would be fairly new. Some of the other communities, instead of setting up RDAs, they set up community development authorities, which have a mixed component intended to do, provides an easier route for long-term ownership of properties, things like that. So there are a number of CDAs throughout the state. I don't know what the decisions or parameters were reviewed that decided to go the RDA route in the community, but it is, this type of function is not unheard of in the state. It's typically not done under the RDA authority, and that's why we would focus on not long-term ownership of these structures, but it is something that does occur in a number of communities.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so my final comment is just, I still am very supportive of it, but like I said, I think it is very smart to spell out very clearly the kind of scope of what we're working on and make sure it's very clear to me that I am interested in still talking a little bit more and thinking about what that partnership with Housing Authority could be, but I understand there might be, we might get more information and learn it's just not going to work for us in the format we have here, but I don't want to exclude that either. So I think just making sure that it's very obvious that we would entertain a wide variety of project proposals, including potential partnership with Housing Authority, but it just seems like there's a lot more that we would need to, more information is, I think, needed for a final direction or confirmation that we would want to do that.
Yeah, a couple questions and comments. One is with respect to the city's capital plan and the allocation for RDA. In that, is my memory correct? And that could be a question mark, but is my memory correct that that was targeted for affordable housing initiatives? Okay, so in one respect, we potentially have a source of, to answer Ham's question about, you know, the new scope and where funding comes and how that limits, you know, that there is that component to look to, which is a change from past approaches. Second, it kind of relates to Ray's comment and about the mission and setting some targets. I think your comments, your answers are correct that, you know, future boards will give feedback and so towards that affordable side of things, you know, are we making progress? Are we on the right track, et cetera? But I think it's also important to do some benchmarks or at least set some parameters at the outset to give those future boards a sense of where did we start from, you know, and how are we adhering towards that? And in the absence of that, you know, you could have a creeping mission of, okay, well, we've accomplished this much. How much further do we push? How much more do we do? And so on there. So I think setting some of those at the outset is an important aspect. My third question is more technical, and it kind of goes beyond the scope of the RDA, but it's understanding what is the impact for real estate taxes? You know, if the RDA is placing these and owning these and working in conjunction with the housing authority, are they taxed as normal housing units at that point, or is there some exemption or some different treatment there?
That is a good question. That's something we would have to figure out as well. Typically speaking, the properties that an RDA would likely be getting involved with, their tax values are very minimal to begin with because it is a blighted structure and it's reflected by what the RDA is looking to acquire and clean up. So even if it did come off the tax rolls and become tax exempt while the RDA owned it, it's probably a minimal impact because there was minimal value to begin with. But anything that was, say, clean, sold, and then turned back out, those obviously become fully taxable back on the rolls. And we can check with terms of the other impacts.
Just following up on Jessica's comments on the discussion on the CDA, not really a decision point for this board, but it might be worth legal providing feedback to City Council on, you know, whether this board should convert to a CDA or, you know, what that might look like or pros and cons. Just a thought that may be worth exploring.
And that's something we've actually broached the question internally is this something with actually trying to get some context of anybody know why they went the route they did when they first set this up. So it is something that we're kind of taking a look at, seeing what's the difference, and I know very superficially what the differences are, but it's something we could certainly dig deeper. It would be part of the board's decision, and then ultimately, and this would also be a recommendation from the board that would go to council if they wanted to pursue switching over to Community Development Authority as well.
Any other questions regarding redevelopment districts?
Just what was the timeline again for like some next steps, especially if we want to provide some feedback in writing on just benchmarks and things?
I think we'd like to, so we'll start formally putting together some parameters of redevelopment for these districts because it sounds like there's no concerns with the maps as drawn with the two districts. This district having this piece added to it, and then a separate redevelopment district defined by this. So it doesn't sound like there's any concerns with the maps as drawn. So we'll start defining those, and we'll plan to put together some information, more formalized information as a proposal format for the October meeting. If you want to send any thoughts or things that we want to add or bring as part of the concept to me over the next 2 weeks, we can get some of that implemented as well, or make sure that we're addressing any individual board members' concerns. And then the October review could either be an approval, yep, we feel comfortable with this, it's ready to go forward, or that could take us to some revisions that will then come back in November and look for a formal approval in November from the board. Our goal is to have it finished by the end of the year through council. It doesn't have to be that. If we need to go a little further, we can, but Ideally, to have the new district set up and ready to go at the start of the new budget year in January 1 would be a nice way to kick off 2026.
All right, thank you.
Thank you on that.
Next item, brownfields.
So just a few updates. I'm going to, actually, I don't have any slides up. So we are seeing good progress being made on the P&R Properties project. They're finishing up nicely. They're on track to get all their completions done and moving that project forward, so it's gone very well. We have one project that is interested in the Heights. That is the site. This is not a great comparison, but that would be the thin, long project that runs from the new Cannery Park down to Brewing Project. This is a project I had an interest in it before while we were still looking at the moating proposal. With the proposal being opened back up, I connected them with a local developer, a builder who is helping them put together a design and build option to get them into their building. It would combine, I don't want to go into too much detail, but it would combine making a product as well as like neighborhood type bakery, hangout, community space, commercial space. So the concept fits very well with the maker's concept that was the Cannery District. As soon as they have a proposal and the basic parameters ready, and they're working on that, they've been working quite a bit on that, on design and layout. We hope to be bringing a proposal to the RDA for that site, an initial proposal very soon. We'll go through the same process, request the enter an MOU, hammer out the terms, and then move forward on that. It would be a great project. It'd fit really well within there, and we're excited to hopefully see that come forward. We've had a few inquiries on, that was the Riverside site. The Heights is the one on the north side of the north side of the park along the High Bridge Trail. We've had a couple of inquiries about that. Interest, we walked, and we've actually, talking to a few developers have shown some interest. I walked that with some of the planner staff. We think there may be a better way to develop that instead of trying to do two large developments the way Silver Creek presented, which has a pretty high cost. We have also recommended some of them to maybe look at doing like an 80-unit multifamily in the lower, wider section of the Heights project. Because if you remember, it kind of starts as a bowl and then narrows up as it heads along the trail. And it climbs in elevation as it goes along the trail. But along the road and that trail development, staggered row homes moving up the hill would fit well, a little lower density, so it's a nice transition moving north, and would better work in the topography. We've seen that happen in the Galloway Flats project. We saw that happen in Reiche's project in Sky Park, where they utilized those types of staggered roof line developments to do steeper elevation building. Be a little less density, but still fit well with what we're looking to do. And it could provide some ownership opportunity on that space. And there's a couple of the developers we've talked to are interested in that idea. So we're hoping to see some proposals come forward on that as well. We're continuing to push that out. It's that and Kessler Park are the last two big spaces left available under the RDA's purview. So we are definitely winding down in terms of having buildable ground. And still a lot of interest in the community. The mix is shifting. The numbers, there are enough folks that are currently building apartments or looking to build apartments that I think the developers that are coming are doing a lot more market research. We are seeing inquiries again about 55 and up leisure living. And Silver Creek always said that 5.5% interest was what could see their project move forward again. So there's an option that they may come, if we hit that, they may come back and pick up their proposals for the Heights as well. So we'll stay tuned for that as well. But happy to answer any questions about anything else that's going on in the community, in or outside the RDA districts.
I have a question. Well, so I don't know, Aaron, maybe it'd be helpful actually if you could just give a brief overview of what Hawk has been working on and like their focus, because I think there's, in addition to talking about Housing Authority and what RDA is working on, there's Housing Opportunities Commission, and they've got a smaller pot of money set aside for helping promote affordable housing projects, and so I didn't know, maybe if you want to just give a super brief overview of that.
Absolutely. So they have a little over $500,000 left as kind of a rollover from other funding years and streams. They're looking to set up a new scoring matrix and criteria. Their old scoring matrix they used on the last 2 rounds of funding was built heavily off of the LIHTC scoring matrix that WHEDA uses. Found that doing anything other than a LIHTC project, it doesn't fit real well. So they're looking to try and make it a little more flexible to be able to gauge projects. They are interest, and the board's still coming together on what they want to focus on, but there's been interest on doing things tied to rehab as opposed to new construction. They're open to new construction, also looking to define what markets can best be served. They will have $250,000 allocated in the CIP for 2026, so next year they'll have another $250,000 that would be available to dedicate to a project or multiple projects. It will be a competitive grant process again, so there'll be an open grant window. The matrix they're looking to create and the parameters the criteria they're looking to set up, it will go to council for approval. So that will be happening later this fall. When they determine what they want to put forward, it'll go to council. When council approves, they'll start soliciting proposals and hope to do some things related to housing as well. There's a number of organizations who have reached out to them, thinking that they have some opportunity to move forward. They've had some presentations. One was from a group that's looking to stand up a community land trust in the area. So they have talked and presented about what they hope to do. They're using a consultant out of the Twin Cities who's had a lot of experience managing land trusts. So the organization is on a good start and on a good track to get something going. For those who aren't aware, land trusts are designed to help maintain affordability on a property. Land trust owns the land, the owner owns the home. The land trust then just leases, and every community, every land trust is different. Some of them do it for $1 a year, some of them do it for a nominal monthly fee, but they lease the land to the property owner. In return, they specify how much equity they can gain on that project. The most common is, you gain 1 or 2% per year that you live in the home, up to a maximum of a certain percentage above your purchase price. The idea being that they're getting a very low cost home on the front end and trying to prevent folks from just turning around, flipping them and doubling their asking price. So that land trust helps maintain that affordability through multiple buyers. It creeps up every time it turns hands, but it helps keep some of that affordability in place for a longer period of time. So we've been interested in seeing somebody move forward the land trust or some sort of an organization create one. And there's one that's formally moving through, and a couple of other groups that have shown interest in maybe creating their own land trust to do some of their own development spaces. So there's some good, interesting things that are going on in that realm as well.
Just a quick question, was the liner site remnant closing?
It's supposed to close the end of the month. We are meeting with Merge and the developer next week on Thursday on the 24th. It's a project we haven't pushed real hard because they're developing the transit housing, and we really want to keep them focused on getting that project knocked out first, but we'll be following up with them. I did have a conversation earlier this year with their architect on the space. I think they are looking at, their proposal was ground floor commercial and then 4 levels, 4 units of apartments. I did share with them that if the market's changing enough, they want to change the mix of the facility, they can bring a change of proposal back to the RDA, and the RDA would be able to say, yep, we're okay with that. And maybe it's cutting a floor off, maybe it's adding office spaces in part of that, because we have seen some interest. We still see interest in office space in the downtown area. So there's some options for them to change things a little bit. It's tricky because there is the DA that defines a TIF assistance on that project that was approved. $800,000 assistance for an $8 million guaranteed value on that property, and the TID incentive period is closed. It's close enough to the end that they can't do any other type of incentives through TID 8. So anybody that needs help on that project, it needs to conform to what the existing DA is to some extent, or with reasonable modifications. So makes that piece a little tricky, but It's stretched out long enough that we are going to give them some chance to, or they have been kind of reviewing the market metrics that they had originally looked at to see how well that fits. They were looking at 57 units, penetrations into the parking structure. They're going to use the parking structure as all of their parking requirements, which is what we intended it to be. So we're still excited to see that project move forward. Yep.
Any other questions for today or information?
That's all I have.
No. All right. Well, with that, if I could get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
One other thing on the Cannery Park, which is amazingly played there, is that the bird scooters and the range ends for the park. And I wanted to take bird scooters into the skate park area. We could, the bird scooters to go like through the High Bridge area and back down. That would be pretty cool.
If you want to shoot me an email reminder on that, I can talk to Bird because that is simply a geofence program. They can extend it, so we can. Yep. Yep. I was told by somebody too that the need to get the bathrooms open operational is critical because they were out there with all of their toddlers, and one of the trees got well watered at that park. Let's just put it that way. They said they couldn't get in the bathroom, and it was an emergency. So one of the trees got a little extra watering that day. Yeah, unfortunately. On that note, I'm going to turn off the lights.
Maybe they don't want you to scoot on the skate park. That's what I'm thinking. Hey, Jess. Thanks for bringing up the Hawk stuff.